My breath catches sometimes even now when I think of it. A phantom pain that never truly fades away, a scar tissue deep within my soul. It has been years, but the echoes remain, the sharp edges of memory refusing to dull. I often wonder if he still thinks of me with the same blend of anger and profound sadness. I probably deserve it. More than deserve it. What I did was a betrayal so complete, so utterly destructive, that it left a crater in both our lives, a void that might never truly be filled. We were, Michael and I, a story everyone thought was written in the stars. High school sweethearts, college sweethearts, adult sweethearts. Our lives were so intertwined it felt like we shared a single heartbeat. Our laughter mingled in the quiet corners of our small apartment. Our dreams were whispered into the night, sharing the same pillow. We talked about future homes, children, pets, the mundane beauty of growing old together. He was my rock, my confidant, my everything. Or so I believed, or so I wanted to believe. Perhaps that was the first crack in the foundation, that insidious belief that someone else could be everything for me without any effort on my part. The change was gradual, subtle, like the slow erosion of a shoreline by persistent waves. It wasn't a sudden storm, but a creeping coldness. Life became busy. Work consumed us. The spontaneity that once defined our weekends slowly gave way to predictable routines. Netflix on Fridays, brunch on Sundays. Our conversations grew shallower, revolving around bills, errands, the weather. The deep soul-bearing talks, the silly inside jokes, the passionate embraces, they became rarer relics of a bygone era. I felt a distance growing between us, a chasm I didn't know how to bridge. I yearned for his attention, for his gaze to linger on me, for him to truly see me beyond the demands of daily life. But he seemed preoccupied, lost in his own world, his own stresses. I told myself it was normal. Every long-term relationship faces these ebbs and flows. We just needed to push through it. But deep down, a tiny seed of resentment began to sprout, watered by my own insecurities. I felt invisible, unappreciated, unheard. I craved validation, that spark that made me feel alive and desirable. And that is where the danger truly began. When you start looking outside your own garden for flowers to admire, you risk trampling the ones you already have. His name was Alex. He was new at my office, a transfer from a different branch. Bright, engaging, incredibly attentive. He listened, really listened. Not just nodded politely, but asked follow-up questions, remembered details from previous conversations, offered genuine insights. He made me laugh easily. He saw me. He made me feel seen. It was intoxicating. We started with coffee breaks, then lunch. Innocent enough, right? Just colleagues building rapport. That's what I told myself. That's what I told the reflection in the mirror that was already starting to look a little guilty. The line blurred so imperceptibly. First it was casual work talk, then shared frustrations about our jobs, then personal anecdotes, then jokes that only we understood. His compliments started small about my ideas, my work ethic, then about my dress, my smile, my intelligence. They were like droplets of water on parched ground, and I drank them in greedily. I felt a lightness, a buoyancy I hadn't felt in months, perhaps even years with Michael. I began to look forward to work, not for the tasks, but for Alex. My phone became a source of nervous excitement, buzzing with his messages late into the evening. I knew it was wrong. Every message, every stolen glance, every lingering touch of hands, when passing documents, felt like a tiny chisel chipping away at the foundation of my relationship with Michael. There were moments of clarity, sharp stabs of guilt, where I would resolve to pull back, to distance myself from Alex. But then he would say something kind, something funny, something that made me feel special, and all my resolutions would dissolve like sugar in hot tea. The craving for that attention, that feeling of being desired, was too powerful. It was a hunger I hadn't realized I was starving for until Alex offered a feast. One evening, we were working late on a project, just the two of us, in the quiet office. The city lights twinkled outside the window. The air was thick with unspoken tension, a current humming between us. We finished the task, but neither of us moved to leave. He looked at me, his eyes warm, gentle. He said something about how talented I was, how easy it was to work with me, how much he enjoyed my company. My heart hammered against my ribs. I could feel the heat rising in my cheeks. He reached across the table and took my hand. His thumb traced the back of my hand, slowly sending shivers down my arm. In that moment, I had a choice. A clear, unequivocal choice. I could have pulled my hand away, said goodnight, walked out the door, and gone home to Michael. I could have confessed my growing feelings to Michael and tried to work through whatever was missing in our relationship. But I didn't. I just sat there paralyzed by the warmth of his touch, the unspoken question in his eyes, and the desperate need within me to feel something, anything other than the quiet ache of my life with Michael. He leaned in slowly. I didn't resist. My eyes fluttered shut as his lips met mine. It was soft at first, tentative, then it deepened, a rush of sensation, a wave of illicit thrill and terrifying pleasure. In that kiss, I felt a profound sense of wrongness, a betrayal so stark it took my breath away. And yet I also felt a surge of vitality, of being wanted, of being alive. It was a contradiction, a paradox, a moral catastrophe unfolding within me. That night was the beginning of my double life. The secret meetings, the whispered calls, the coded messages. Each lie I told Michael, each excuse I concocted, felt like another brick in a wall I was building between us. A wall made of deceit and cowardice. I was living a performance, a constant act. One version of me was the loving girlfriend planning weekends with Michael, discussing our future. The other version was the clandestine lover, meeting Alex in dimly lit cafes, stealing moments of passion in empty stairwells, exchanging longing glances across meeting rooms. The guilt was a constant companion, a heavy cloak draped over my shoulders. It weighed me down, making every smile I gave Michael feel forced, every touch a lie. I watched him sometimes when he was unaware, studying his face, his genuine smile, the way his brow furrowed in concentration. And my heart would ache with a sickening blend of love and remorse. How could I do this to him, to us, to the man who loved me unconditionally, who trusted me completely? The thrill of the secret was intoxicating for a while. It made me feel vibrant, dangerous, alive. But beneath that veneer was a growing sense of dread. The fear of discovery was a knot in my stomach, tightening with each passing day. Every unexpected phone call, every innocent question from Michael made my blood run cold. My sleep was fractured, haunted by nightmares of confession and confrontation. It finally came to a head, not with a bang, but a whimper. It wasn't a dramatic discovery in a movie-like scene. It was far more mundane, and therefore far more crushing. Michael found a text message. A simple, innocent-looking text from Alex on my phone while I was in the shower. Something about, missing our coffee break tomorrow. But it was the context of previous deleted messages he managed to retrieve using a recovery app that revealed the truth. The hidden conversations, the emojis, the terms of endearment. He saw it all. I remember stepping out of the shower wrapped in a towel, feeling surprisingly refreshed. I walked into the living room and saw him sitting on the couch, my phone clutched in his hand. His face pale and stark. The air in the room was suddenly heavy, suffocating. My heart plummeted. I knew instantly. There was no need for words. His eyes, hollow and filled with a pain so deep it pierced my very soul, told me everything. "Sarah," he said, his voice barely a whisper, raw with agony. "What have you done?" The carefully constructed edifice of my lies crumbled into dust. All the justifications, all the rationalizations, all the desperate attempts to compartmentalize my life vanished in an instant. There was only the stark, horrifying truth. I stood there, naked, in my deceit. My towel, a flimsy shield against the avalanche of his heartbreak. The confrontation was brutal, not with shouting or hysterics, but with a quiet, devastating despair. He didn't yell, he just asked questions. Questions I couldn't answer, questions I didn't want to answer because the answers were ugly and indefensible. Why? How long? Was it real? Was any of us real? Each question was a hammer blow, shattering fragments of our shared history. I tried to explain. I tried to articulate the loneliness, the feeling of being unseen, the yearning for connection that had driven me to Alex. But the words felt hollow, pathetic, insufficient. They couldn't erase the betrayal, the deep wound I had inflicted. My explanations sounded like excuses, justifications for an unforgivable act. And maybe they were. The look in his eyes when he finally said, "I don't know if I can ever trust you again," was the moment our story ended. It wasn't an angry outburst. It was a statement of profound sorrow, of irreversible damage. The trust that had been the bedrock of our relationship for over a decade was shattered beyond repair, and I was the one who had shattered it. We broke up a few weeks later. The air between us was too thick with ghosts of what we were and shadows of what I had done. The apartment that once echoed with our laughter became a tomb of silence. Packing up my things felt like dismantling a lifetime. Each item a painful reminder of a promise broken, a future stolen. Alex. What happened with Alex? It fizzled out. The thrill of the forbidden became tainted by the reality of my broken relationship. He was kind, he was understanding. But the foundation of our connection was built on deceit, and that made it unstable, inherently flawed. The guilt followed me into that relationship too, a dark cloud hanging over every moment. It wasn't fair to him either to be the rebound, the recipient of my confused emotions. It wasn't a real love, it was an escape, a misguided quest for self-validation. We eventually parted ways, a quiet acknowledgement that we were both caught in a mess I had created. Looking back, I see it all with a clarity that is both painful and liberating. I realize now that Michael wasn't perfect. No one is. But he was good, he was loving, he was committed. My unhappiness, my feelings of neglect were real, but my response to them was catastrophic. Instead of communicating my needs, instead of fighting for our relationship, instead of having difficult conversations, I ran. I sought an easy escape, a temporary balm for my wounded ego. The hardest truth to swallow is that my actions stemmed from my own weaknesses, my own insecurities, my own inability to confront discomfort. I betrayed Michael, but in a deeper sense, I betrayed myself. I compromised my values, my integrity, my character, and that is a burden I still carry. I learned from it, though. Oh God, I learned. The hard way, the agonizing way. I learned that trust, once broken, is incredibly difficult to mend, and sometimes impossible. I learned that communication, even when painful, is essential. I learned that true happiness comes from within, from self-respect, from integrity, not from external validation or fleeting illicit thrills. I still think of Michael sometimes. I hope he found happiness. Real, lasting happiness with someone who cherishes him completely and honestly. Someone who would never inflict the kind of pain I did. As for me, I've spent years rebuilding myself, learning to be honest with myself about my shortcomings, my needs, my desires, learning to be comfortable in my own skin without needing someone else to complete me or validate me. The story of Michael and me is a cautionary tale, a testament to the fragility of trust, the destructive power of selfishness, and the profound cost of betrayal. I walk through life now with the knowledge that I caused immense pain. And while I've forgiven myself for being human, for making a terrible mistake, the echoes of that mistake still serve as a constant reminder. A reminder to choose kindness, to choose honesty, to choose integrity always, no matter how difficult it may seem in the moment. Because the cost of not choosing them is a burden far heavier than any temporary discomfort. That is the truth I carry. That is the story I live with. A quiet testament to the chaos I created and the difficult path I've walked towards redemption.